Welcome back to SA Decides Convenience Poll. Now, from a shaky Tshwane to a seemingly uncertain Johannesburg, our political fortunes are shifting in the commercial capital. The ANC so far has been unfazed by the alleged decline in support, focusing instead on concerted campaigning. Can the DA erode the ANC's voter base enough to seal the march over the governing party? It's back to Shante for more numbers.
Indeed, Cindy, the focus now is on Johannesburg. Let's have a look at Johannesburg as the metro. We do know that it is one of the hotly contested metros, specifically with the DA and the ANC there. Well, 48.3% of people feel that the ANC in Johannesburg will be able to deliver services. 34.0% there from the DA, 9.7%. We can actually see a much larger increase and marginal line here between the ANC and DA in Johannesburg with regards to delivering services than we saw with Tshwane. We have a look at which party do you think will win in your municipality. Of course, the upcoming local government elections. Again, 50.8% for the ANC and 35.3%. We see the margins seem to be increasing in Johannesburg between the ANC and the DA. Of course, EFF there at 7.5%. Who would you vote for if local polls were held today in real time? Well, 50.7% again in Johannesburg feel that they would be voting for the ANC. The DA there, 35.6%. Again, that margin is quite high. It includes at more than 10 percentage points, and the EFF there at 7.3%. Who would you vote for national polls? If national polls were held today, of course, they are set to take place in 2 years' time. Well, still again, it seems the ANC leading 51.2%, 34.8% for the DA, and 7.7% for the EFF. It seems that the margins specifically in Johannesburg seem to be growing wider, apart from having a look at some of the other categories that many people in Gauteng, specifically in Johannesburg, do feel that the ANC would, of course, take those national polls. Let's have a look at the comparison from last week to this week. Well, the ANC last week had 39.7%. This week, they seem to have gained nearly 10% at 50.7%. The DA there from last week, 42.6%. This week, they are at 35.6%. Of course, there's been a decline there, and the EFF last week were at 10.3%. This week, they are at 7.3%. It seems that the ANC is gaining momentum in Johannesburg. If we have a look at the shifting equilibriums, specifically with regards to votes, on the 2011 side, these are the actual votes from 2011 and in which the parties had obtained there. The ANC 58.5%, the DA at 34.6%. But if we actually have a look at the comparisons there, this 2016 point here is the projection that we are projecting for this year's municipal elections there. We can see there's an actual decline of nearly 8% from the ANC in 2011 to this year, and the DA also seemed to have some sort of an increase, even though it is very, very marginal with about 0. Whatever so percentage there, just under 1% rather, with regards to the projections that we are forecasting for the upcoming elections next week, Cindy.
All right, Thabo Manyoni is a Mangaung executive mayor. Just looking at the numbers in Johannesburg so far, creating a picture essentially of what happened in 2011. The ANC is at 50.75% in comparison to the DA at 35.6%. What do you think is at the crux of it all? Why the ANC still enjoys this particular support in the background of the big scandals, the e-tolls and everything else?
Cindy, you know, I wanted to interject whilst you were talking. I wanted to say first, when we compare DA-run municipality and ANC-run municipalities, we basically are comparing the incomparable. You know, it's like going to a school where there are 2 kids, and when they pass, we say you have 100% pass rate. And when you go to a school where there are 1,000 kids and 500 pass, we say we have 50% pass rate. The fact of the matter is, School B is having more kids who have passed than School A. So in this regard, the same is applying. We have one city there. When we have Joburg City, which is the best run city, actually one in the world, can't compare it with any DA municipality. The same thing with eThekwini, including Mangaung municipality, of which basically I'm the mayor.
The numbers speak for themselves.
Are running quite well.
Okay, let's get
the numbers speak for themselves in terms of citizen satisfaction, not in terms of polls. I said the taste of the pudding is basically in the taste. That is basically in the eating, not about prophesizing what might happen. At the end of the day, it is about people voting. And I
Okay,
think
let's
that's
see what
where
the DA
basically
well,
the issue would be.
your reaction just to the numbers here at 50.7% for the ANC and 35.6% for Johannesburg. Mr. Mashaba, you're going to have to wave a magic wand. What is the silver bullet for the DA?
Well, look, Cindy, I've been on the campaign trail now for the last 6 months, and I'm on the ground every day in the communities. People who are traditionally not DA voters. I can confidently tell you the 3rd of August is around the corner. People of Johannesburg and Pretoria are saying to us, DA, you're the party of our choice. In fact, listening to the gentleman here earlier on, voters of Johannesburg and Pretoria have got a very serious decision to make. They have the government that does not really know why we're seeing jobs bloodbath in our cities. They are saying they don't know why. They're talking about global challenges. The reason why Johannesburg and Pretoria are losing jobs is because of lack of leadership. It's a lack of enabling environment. An enabling environment is created by government. That's the role of government, is to create enabling environment for the private sector to employ our people. But unfortunately, our colleagues who are today in government, they have no clue. That is why they are blaming everything on everything else, including global challenges. But at the same time, let me give you an example of what happened the first quarter of this year. Stats SA, not us. Stats SA, Pretoria and Johannesburg shared jobs first quarter of this year, whereas Cape Town created jobs. Now, what is that? What is actually creating this is because of the government, the leadership that creates an enabling environment for the private sector to invest in your city. And that's precisely what's happening in here. The way the government does not really know what the problems are.
Yeah. Do you think, Henry, that if we look at the numbers again, in 2011, the ANC was at 58.56% in Gauteng, and the DA was at 34.6%, not very different from the picture that we see. But, of course, the ANC had lost 8% of their voter base. You give or take about 1 or 2%. If all things considered, why is it that we don't see the inroads that the DA can make in the city, if you are especially highlighting the alleged corruption and, you know, job shedding and all the other elements mentioned?
Thank you very much, Cindy. I think, again, we need to look at this dynamically. The ANC national share of the vote in 2006 in terms of municipal votes was 64.1%. Then in 2011 was 61%, and now it's dropped down to 50.7%. That's the national share.
No, 2011 it was 58.56%.
That's in the city of Johannesburg, but I'm talking about
Correct.
the national share.
No, we in
sure.
Joburg.
Sure,
Yeah.
no, I appreciate that. But even if you look at Joburg, if you look at 58% to 50.7%, that's an 8% drop. So what we're seeing is certainly that attrition in terms of the ANC support. But I think what's important is for us to come back to the point earlier, and that is about jobs.
But you haven't grown. I mean, you've done the campaign, we're going to create jobs, you on social media, you phone people, SMS, all of these things. But according to our statistics, you've just really just made a small impact.
This is one particular poll. If you look at what we've been doing in terms of our own data collection, in terms of our canvassing, we've reached a record number of people in Johannesburg, door to door, through tele-canvassing. We've never reached this number before. So we're pretty confident, looking at our internal statistics, that we're going to do a lot better than this poll may currently suggest.
You can't knock it when it says it's not suiting you, and then praise the survey when it says the DA is doing well in Tshwane. So there must be that element of consistency. And then the point I want to make, there's no municipality of Pretoria. So I don't know, I mean, I guess it's got to do with the ideological posturing of the DA on the insistence of referring to a municipality of Pretoria, which doesn't exist anywhere in the country.
People have confidence in the ANC, even in Johannesburg. And it is very sad to see a businessman like Mr. Mashaba wanting to de-link the economic conditions in the country and the global economic conditions. Because those two are intertwined, you can't separate them. We're a global village. If Europe sneezes, South Africa is going to catch the flu, because those are the people whom we trade with. So we can't really say when there's a serious decline in manufacturing around the world, when there's a serious decline in the business of financial services, and expect South Africa to be growing alone. So that's where the jobs are shared. So I think we must firstly appreciate that. And second, our people are not fools. Our people are aware that the champions of cutting jobs are private sector. And the very same Mr. Mashaba agitates for privatizing certain state entities like Pick It Up. They know that when Pick It Up goes to a private entity, it will only the new owners will be focused on profits and chop human resources.
Let's get Alex Mashilo, national spokesperson for the SACP, primarily when it comes to the stance of creating a conducive environment, investor-friendly, creating jobs that the DA is promising the voters in Johannesburg. How do you counter that argument?
The DA, in fact, I propose that Herman Mashaba must do some basic economic studies. I will give you practical examples. Tshwane is the Detroit of South Africa. That is where automotive manufacturing in this country is taking place. There are about 4 OEMs operating in Tshwane because of the carrying policies of the African National Congress. There are too many automotive component suppliers that are operating in Tshwane as well. In fact, I'm doing my PhD on this particular field. Now, Herman Mashaba would like to tell us that his plan is to create jobs. To create jobs can't be a plan. It can only be a goal. It takes minute details of practical steps that must be implemented so that the outcome of creating jobs is visible. If you look at the policies driven by the Department of Trade and Industry, listen to the messages that come from BMW in Roslyn, Ford Motor Company in Mamelodi, Nissan in Roslyn, Nissan Diesel in Roslyn, Mentruck in Midrand. These are the messages to increase investment in the country. Herman Mashaba does not want to acknowledge that. And let me share with Herman Mashaba my little experience of being a worker in the automotive industry. When I first started building cars in this industry in Tshwane, there were about 5,000 workers in one factory. What happened is that there was robotization, there was automation, there was restructuring in terms of Japanese principles of work organization and production restructuring. And at the end of the day, you have one factory employing less number of people before, but producing more cars. There are industrial engineering processes taking place in industry. Mashaba must spend time to study these processes because they do not only affect South Africa. The reason why, for example, raw material prices have plummeted and we have raw materials in South Africa is because there is a slowdown of the economy in China. Where do we sell those particular raw materials?
Let's give Mr. Mashaba an opportunity to respond,
does
please.
not tell us about what exactly will they do in order to ensure that the mineral endowments that we have are beneficiated locally.
Mashaba is Remashilo, let's give Mr. Mashaba an opportunity.
Mr. Masilo, jobs are created by the private sector. Government's responsibility and role is to create an enabling environment for them. If you look at the growth of this country, just revised to what, 1%, so you can imagine, how are we going to run this country with almost under 9 million people unemployed? The growth rate of Africa, it's running at what? Just over 5%. South Africa could not even make 1% growth. So who do we blame? You can't really then take this to be a global problem. You can imagine a developed economy like the United States, a developed economy like the UK, growing 2 to 3 times better than us. So that shows the problem is not a global problem. The problem is the leadership in this country to create an enabling environment for the business sector to be able to flourish.
Okay, we have Tabu Mahlangu, national spokesperson of SANCO, as well as part of the debate. The leadership and the two contenders here with Parks Tau, who's got a proven track record, and a astute, well-respected South African icon, Herman Mashaba, in terms of business, but a political novice as well. Mr. Mahlangu, do you think, I mean, these are the things that obviously are going to come to play when people finally cast their vote on the 3rd of August?
Well, they do count, but they also what the municipalities have been able to deliver. if you do a comparative analysis, take Tshwane, take Johannesburg, take Cape Town. I think all of us know by now that in the Western Cape, Africans are treated as refugees. I think their leader said it, and that's exactly what they are doing. We have the high swell of migration into Tshwane and Johannesburg, and I think the two municipalities are doing extremely well. And I think, and that's why, as Sanko, our view is that our people will give their vote to those people who have seemed to be taking people, especially black and colored and Indian, serious. I mean, the few black leaders in the DA, we all know they are there as fashion shows.
Mr. Mashang, I know we're tempted to posture, but please may I request that we keep it clean.
Indeed. Our view is that our people are going to support those municipalities that have taken them serious. What you see in the Western Cape is underdevelopment of colored and black. Even the rapid transport system in Johannesburg, it started going to the township. In Tshwane, the same thing. In the Western Cape, it is in the high-class white community. It hasn't touched any township. So it's an embarrassment for the DA, what they're doing to the blacks and colored in the Western Cape. So if they want to do what they're doing there, surely people of Tshwane and Johannesburg must reject them.
Andrew, I'll give you an opportunity to respond. I just have to reflect on the numbers again. At the comparison in 2011-2016, ANC dropped by 8% to be at 50.7%. The DA was at 34.62%. You're now at 35.6%. Very marginal growth there. But Johannesburg in itself was almost imploding. There was a time where, in terms of the infrastructure and having to modernize the city was not something that was well received, especially when it came to the Gautrain, the bulk infrastructure, the argument saying that we can ill afford it. The billing system has been cleaned up. So do you think this kind of progress report bids very well for Parkstyle?
I think it does. I think Joburg has invested billions of rand in new infrastructure. And what we know is that the quality public infrastructure is an attractive force for private sector investment, the kind of investment Mr. Mashaba was referring to. So I think all of these investments that you've seen, the ones that you've referred to, including the recapitalization of the road infrastructure that Joburg is doing now, I think they're spending over 300 million rand in recapitalizing the road infrastructure. All of this lends itself to a city which becomes more productive, which attracts higher numbers of business, and in that way we are able to employ higher numbers of people. I just want to make a point. You know, both the two OEMs that are located in Tshwane made investment decisions of almost 8 billion rands in the past 6 months to reinvest in the city of Tshwane. We're seeing that trend continuing. Between the period 2011 and 2014, we've had 82 billion rand worth of building plans approved in the city. 72 billion of that is in the private sector.
But is that what influences the voters?
No, the point I'm trying to make is that part of what influences the voters is how this economy is working for them. And you need to get that economy working. And I'm demonstrating the point that under the leadership of the ANC in this province, in the three metros particularly, you've seen a positive growth of the economy. All three of the metros are growing much higher than national growth rates. You're seeing much higher levels of
granted, but we see the big scandals as well as brought on the DA's campaign. You know, he stole so much and now he wants so much more. That kind of thing. That do voters, especially the core-based, traditionalist, purist voters, really care about scandal, Nkandla, Concord, whatever else, or is it essentially about an allegiance that you cannot defy? It's like a religion. You know, it's something that you brought into that people will continue to vote according to that. This is the pattern that we're seeing, though.
Look, I think we must first say that the exaggeration of the DA of exaggerating scandals and making corruption an ANC thing or a black thing has failed. It failed in 2014. They ran a big campaign about Nkandla. We still defeated them. And the issue of making corruption a black thing has also failed. They have their own councillors which are caught in corruption in the Western Cape. So I'm saying the issue of corruption is a problem of the system of capitalism where dog eat dog, where people must compete, and when they compete, they engage in unscrupulous means. But what influences voter behavior in the main is material benefits. People vote because of a prospect of a better life. if that's the only reason why they vote. And if they do not see a prospect of a better life, they will not vote. That is why when the system of capitalism is in a crisis and there seems not to be much prospects of a better life, our people will stay at home and not vote, and the voter turnout will be low. And that is what influences voter behavior. That is why you find that in areas like former homelands or what we call rural areas, people still vote in their numbers because they see their lives improving. They move from not having a tap to having water. But in Gauteng, where the main issue, we have a very large number of the South African middle class, whose life is no longer about getting water, getting access to sanitation, it's about upward class mobility, which is frustrated by DA sponsors and DA members in the corporate, South Africa.
An opportunity to respond.
Cindy, I want to come in here because I think it's really unfortunate, and I think we need to clarify this. You can't go out and steal public monies, and then when you are questioned, you bring a question of race. I'm a black man, and nothing will really change that. So don't really bring race when it's not necessary. When you steal public monies, accept responsibility. Don't really bring race into the equation.
Yeah, but I mean, you've taken these cases to court.
Yeah,
where,
but,
you know,
but the thing is, we did not take
resolved,
these cases for black people. We took these cases against criminals who steal public monies.
And yes, we need to have active citizenry that will hold the government accountable.
The reason why I'm
totally
objecting to this is to bring the black race into this, because black people are not criminals. Black people don't steal public monies. So don't bring black people into the equation.
Okay, so you want to keep it clean.
Let's talk about people who steal public money.
We're talking politics and not black people necessarily. But I just want to move on from that point. We have quite a couple of things to cover still. So if you'll just respond to the last speakers.
I respectfully don't think that I need to respond to the ad hominem racial vitriolic discussion there about the Western Cape. I happen to be from a so-called coloured community from the Western Cape, and obviously we can all take different offences to that. I don't want to speak about that. I want to come back to Johannesburg. What people want are basic services from a municipal government. This includes sanitation, water, electricity, but also what they want from a local government is a government that enables job creation to occur. Now, if we come back to jobs, and again, this is really essential, the quarterly labor force report for the first 90 days of this year showed that 24,000 jobs were lost in Johannesburg, and during the same 90-day period, 4,000 jobs were created in Cape Town. Now, we could argue that there are economic shocks, but can economic shocks affect just one city and not another? We live in one country. The fact that you have the disparity is important. The other thing is that the prudent management of public funds is important in this whole thing. In Johannesburg, in 2013-2014, 363 million rand was wasted in irregular and wasteful expenditure in Johannesburg. 363 million rand.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we do need to put all the facts on the table.
All right, let's bring Professor Sipho Siepe in here, in that the DA is obviously creating the impression that this is a cesspit of corruption, if you will, and that's pretty much what the campaign has been driving. But one would also argue that the ANC's track record has given building blocks for the DA now to come and put the cherry on top. Realistically speaking, what more can DA do, particularly in Johannesburg, or can they even replicate the model in the Midvaal, etc.? What are the chances for the DA?
Well, I think the DA has made a lot of claims, and I'm pleased that for once, at least in this segment, there's been an attempt to look at those claims. The first claim about the best-run municipalities, I think what needs to happen is a sophisticated look at those, because I would be worried if the DA comes out as almost celebrating what apartheid has left this country, where you find institutions and areas that were heavily invested by the apartheid masters being the ones that perform, and then you say, look at how we do. It's almost like what Alex was saying to me, that if you compare University of Cape Town and University of Venda, we know that there had been systemic underdevelopment for years in historically black universities. And now to say UCT does better than, it's almost like being ahistorical. That is the one thing. Then the second issue that emerges, it's a confusion that seems to be there within the DA of whether they support affirmative action, BEE, and all that. Because the issue of redress is so fundamental to this country. And it worries me when you have almost echoes that suggest that we can airbrush apartheid. This country has a policy, and that policy is a race-conscious policy that says we must redress the past, and that past was racial. And it means that you cannot run away from the issue of race. And I think it's been a biggest challenge in the DA to deal with that issue. I remember the debate between Helen Zille and Lindiwe Masibuko before she was exiled, because it was a problem. Because if you are black, you cannot pretend that it is not the case. Then there's the third issue that emerges that becomes very important is these claims about, where you present yourself as doing so well. There are many protests that are taking place, even where the DA governs. So I think what we need to do is, at least let's be truthful, but you have mastered the art of sound bites. And I think this is where, at least, the ANC has fallen short of in terms of problematizing that. I mean, what Alex was actually putting in terms of economics, it's very important that they at least acknowledge that there are efforts to try to reverse the impact of globalization, because you cannot be a business person and not see that our economy is linked. Actually, it's integrated, has always been integrated from the onset. And to simply pretend that the global currents have no effect on the economy is also very mischievous. And I don't think we should do that. But coming back to that issue, there's an important element here that if the DA wants to do better, it has to be honest with history. It has also to be honest with how people experience realities. We still, I mean, in the study that one of the colleagues there mentioned, that in Johannesburg, people have actually shown that the biggest challenge is more racism than it is actually the issue of services that are delivered, that they are largely more happy with the service they can actually give government. What they say that you are doing better here. But when it comes to issues of racism, and now
Professor
you hear people saying, let's not talk about racism. It's a problem.
I beg your pardon, sir, but we're out of time. Just quickly getting a response from Tsepo Khadima in terms of the EFF, the DA making inroads in Johannesburg, but at least with the ANC retaining a 50%, that is obviously going to require some negotiation when it comes to coalitions if it's not an outright majority.
My view is that the ANC enjoys or carries the advantage of incumbency. And being the incumbent government in all the metros, save for Cape Town, you'll find that I think the numbers that they put out there and their engagement with the people, I think, is going to stand them in good state. What I'm seeing with the Democratic Alliance, I think one has to look in terms of their history, whereby they were founded on the ideology of liberalism. And the unfortunate thing with the ideology of liberalism is that it totally discounts the colonial era from which this country comes from. And hence you find that they are very much not crisp in terms of their messaging on really the key issues that matter to the electorate. And as has been expounded, issues such as employment equity, or affirmative action as is referred to, land reform, particularly on terms of land expropriation. And those are key issues that until and such time that they actually maybe abandon even liberalism as an ideology, I think we're going to continue to see them really remaining the major opposition, purely because the majority of voters, by and large, vote on the brand historically what they were associated to. What I'm seeing happening with the economic freedom fighters, it's really that issue of identity. They have not yet institutionalized. They are really still pretty much based on the personality of their founder president being Julius Malema. And I think that is going to probably not carry the day or convince the majority of people for them to be a force until they institutionalize. And going forward into this election, the poll clearly tells us that the ANC will retain if in the coming days they continue to engage on the door-to-door strategy. But certainly I think DA will continue to be a major player, but I can't see them winning the metros as they've been claiming, based on those key issues that they've not been able to clearly pronounce themselves on. That do they believe that land expropriation is timely? Do they believe in, and also the whole thing of employment, they need to be more specific when they say unemployment or these are the jobs. You can't just say we're going to create jobs. You need to say these are the types of jobs that we are going to.
All
and
right,
this is the
point
evidence
taken,
that
Sepo.
backs up that argument.
Thanks so much. Let's get a reaction from Mr. Zuma. Super, in terms of the public discourse, when it comes to discussing issues of redress, just as ordinary citizens who want and aspire to have a progressive South Africa, when you broach the subject of apartheid, why is it that there is still ill comfort in talking about it, and it's perceived to be a racial thing not to go to? So how do we go over that hurdle to encourage debate, to ensure that everybody enjoys the wealth and the beauty that this country has to offer?
We're moving from the premise that says history shapes the future. So you see, we'll have to talk about what happened during the dark days of apartheid. You see, we'll find DA claiming that they are doing well at Western Cape, but they must tell us that and tell the whole country that what they have done is to create two cities, a city of an advantaged whites and a disadvantaged colored and poor. Then they can't then claim to be doing very well without dealing with the integration of the communities, disadvantaged and advantaged. So then, therefore, we can't run away from that. Let us talk about what the DA is. It's the Democratic Alliance. Alliance of what? It's an alliance of parties that were ruling together in terms of dealing with disadvantaged people. For the DA to be a DA, it had to have a Democratic Party and a Nationalist Party forming one party, which is DA, to protect what they were busy doing when they were ruling together during the dark days.
We know that the ANC has also absorbed some of the National Party members and their parliamentarians at the moment. But I hate to break your word. I just want to get a response from Mr. Alex Mashilo, especially when it comes to issues of what some have said, it's perversive racism in what President Jacob Zuma was saying regarding black people having to vote for the ANC. But then again, we need to deal with issues of the past. On the DA side, I want to get your response on how we create that egalitarian society, that cohesive society that we all aspire to do without redressing or redistribution of the wealth. I'll start with you, Alex.
We must appreciate that this current South Africa, which is in a democratic transition, was founded on the principle of redressing the imbalances of the past. This is written down in the preamble of our country's constitution. The past was a racist past, okay? Now, when you point to the past of racism and say that in terms of our constitution, we must eliminate that, and then somebody comes and claims that that is to be racial, that is completely unacceptable. Look at the map of South Africa. Please draw all the wards. Tell us which wards is the DA running in this country. Those are the wards that are previously advantaged. In terms of our country's constitution, those were the white-only wards in the past. And that is the bedrock of the DA's support. So to dismiss what President Jacob Zuma was saying, simply on the basis of the things that Mashaba finds convenient to say right now, is completely not in line with the vision of South Africa we seek to achieve. Look, we have a problem. We have a problem and we have a solution. The country's constitution tells us what the problem is, and it gives us the vision of what the solution is. And some people are telling us that we must not talk about the problem, we must only talk about the solution. We are the South Africa of today because of the things we did yesterday. We are a future South Africa because of the things we will do today to create a dichotomy between the past and the present, as if the two do not determine each other and are not linked, is to be completely unreasonable, which is what the DA wants us to do.
Mr. Manyoni, Alex saying that this is a deliberate attempt to create that dichotomy, that the two are essentially not related in terms of the past and present. But coming back to Joburg, and this is, of course, the heart and of the economy, the multiplicity of cultures that live here, middle class primarily, and of course in the peripheral, we have the marginalized. So how do we, again, as the ANC at the moment being portrayed, one could say the perception is that it is a black party and the DA making inroads in trying to diversify their DNA or profile. How do we just get clean politics that are there to serve the people of this nation as opposed to posturing and always wanting to be in the lead?
To get what you call clean politics is first to accept our history, because we are what we are because of that history. Presently, 90% of South Africans are still poor because of the growing inequalities that we see. And we are still faced with racism in this country. So we have to deal with these matters. But let me come to Johannesburg. We all are accepting this country that the city of Johannesburg is a metropole. That is a potpourri where everybody feels that they belong. Pakstawi is one of the best leaders on local government. And I think the ruling party in that city has done much to make sure that we have a sustainable and inclusive city. When I talk about inclusivity, I talk about the majority of people feeling that they belong into that space. Can we say the same about the city of Cape Town? I don't think we can. That's why I'm saying sometimes we compare the incomparable. And I think Professor Siepe and my colleagues who just spoke, they've put matters into perspective. The main thing here is not about prioritizing style, nor talking nice words. It is about content and ensuring that we bring best experience in making sure that we have functional cities. And in this regard, this is what voters will be looking into. Nice words, styles, sound bites would not help. But what will help is, do we really feel that we belong? Joburg City is one of the cities in this country where you get Soweto having all the streets tarred, which is a thing that you'll never find in Kukule, Tulanga, and any other of those places in the city of Cape Town.
All right, thanks, Mr.
So,
Manyoni. Let's
I
give
think really, when it
an
comes
opportunity to respond. We need to be equitable when it comes to that time. So if you'll pardon me, let's get the DA to respond.
Thank you very much. I think it's important to clarify this. We know, because this is our lived reality, that the structural inequalities of the past affect us and affect us deeply. They've wounded us. And as a DA, we are passionate about...
But are all the streets tarred in Gugulethu? He just said...
Well, I mean, if I can just complete this, we as a DA are passionate about the redress that's needed in this country. I mean, freedom, fairness, and opportunity is in our DNA. This is what we fight for. And so, for us for it to be said that because we don't want to approach this with coarse racial classification, therefore we are dismissing the past, is a complete and total fiction. What we're saying is that if you look at the provisions of the Constitution, national cohesion, common identity, nation building, that is our point of departure. Let us start from that point and redress the past. Economic equity, our policies are clear on that. We support it, but with the revision of the scorecard. In terms of the redress, actual practical redress, in terms of integration, planned spatial
But just
integration
simply,
of mixed
just
economies.
simply comparing the two in terms of the ANC policy and the DA when it comes to redress,
Yes.
how different is yours, and does it prioritize the black experience in the sense that the majority black, obviously, when it comes to quality education, healthcare, and economic participation? What's different that the DA is doing in that space, and land retribution?
Well,
as well?
it's deeply embedded in practical service delivery. That's the difference. If you look at take land restitution, the issue of it broadly. If you look at the importance of title deeds, that's a very important part of the process. Okay, in Johannesburg in the 2013-2014 financial cycle, zero title deeds were given to eligible beneficiaries. In the same year, 6,151 title deeds were given to beneficiaries in Cape Town. This is a fact. This is a fact.
Yeah, I just want to give Mr. Mashaba time as well to respond to just maybe final comments, your observation going forward. What are you saying to the DA voters?
Cindy, my final comment is to say to people of Johannesburg and Pretoria, the 3rd of August is around the corner. You've got a very serious decision to make. Either you continue voting for the party that is going to see jobs bloodbath in the city, we're going to see the acceleration of corruption and service delivery protest, or you decide to vote for change. Vote for change that we've proven beyond a reasonable doubt that where we govern, we create jobs. Service delivery is a key priority, and we fight corruption. That is why corruption for us in the city of Johannesburg, when we take over, is going to be declared public enemy #1. And we will do it by running a transparent, open government. Our tender systems are going to be open to public scrutiny.
Okay, just the ANC Youth League especially, and in summary, why should voters still consider to vote for the ANC? What's in it particularly for the youth? Do you have a particular program, or what are you doing to appeal to the youth?
Look, at the ANC Youth League, we've been around the province of Gauteng and municipalities interacting with young people, telling them that on the 3rd of August they must vote the ANC, in particular those in metros, who we know their major frustration is upward class mobility in corporate South Africa. And it is the ANC government that says that it is going to give black firms a chance to do business with them. It is the ANC government that says that it will ensure that it intervenes in the private sector to regulate the racism that is there, the glaring income inequalities or salary inequalities amongst races. So we're saying young people must vote the ANC. And I must say, we've been interacting with them. I'm going to talk to them now in Johannesburg City Metro. They are assuring us that they are going to vote the ANC, and the DA will remain in the street polls and dustbins of Pick It Up.
Councillor Khumalo, just in summary, your final thoughts on the survey currently regarding Joburg. It is a tight call indeed. What are you saying to your voters?
Firstly, I want to give Mr. Mashaba a task and responsibility, including Musimaimani. One, they must check around the DA offices countrywide how many blacks are employed in the DA as a political party. Two, they must ask themselves a second question, how many white DA members will they see around town wearing the T-shirt of the DA compared to their black members? Now, the survey has been conducted that I can tell you the door-to-door work of the ANC in Tshwane, in Johannesburg, in Gauteng, Johannesburg, even including Nelson Mandela Metro. There's a lot of work that is being done. The National Executive Committee members of the ANC are all over the country. The president, the deputy, everybody, they're doing a lot of good work that I believe it will change things. But secondly, we must not conclude that when, from 2011, 2015, people, some of those who passed on, especially the elderly, who most of them were voting for the ANC, especially African people. Now, that number of those who might have passed on, it could be reflected as if it is a decline on the voters of the ANC, which is not. But I can tell you, come the 3rd of August, majority of our people in their large numbers, undecided voters, vote for the mighty African National Congress, a champion of note, liberation movement compared to none, and I can tell you we're going to win.
All right, Mr. Mahlangu, just final words from you.
The question that was raised with the DA, whether the townships in the Western Cape or Cape Town are tarred, they've avoided that question. The answer is they are not tarred. Guguletu has terrible infrastructure under development, few roads are tarred, and indeed Johannesburg, all the roads are tarred, and that's what the ANC offers to the people of this country. And therefore, that's why we believe that come the 3rd of August, people are going to vote for the ANC in Tshwane as well in Johannesburg.
Professor Siepe?
Well, I think, as Ndade Manyoni has indicated, the polls are polls. It will only be when people go out there. But I do think that at least what has been good about these debates is that they also should assist political parties, all political parties, including DA, about what are their weaknesses and where they should actually look at to change the message. Because ultimately, this is our South Africa, and we should all be committed to a South Africa that succeeds.
All right, and Alex?
The African National Congress will win because it is present in communities, it has got branches, it has got warm bodies. It does not campaign in communities by means of posters and placards and messaging and calling people on the phones. DA is a guest there. South Africans vote for the ANC to avoid a situation where the DA exports the underdevelopment of Gugulethu throughout the country, calling it the best governance ever in Western Cape.
All right, it is indeed crunch time, but I'm feeling kind. So very, very last word.
Oh, sorry, just a chance to sum up also from my side.
Certainly.
Just to say that, you know, as a DA, we believe in our communities across South Africa. And our offer is freedom, fairness, and opportunity for all South Africans. And if our fellow South Africans want a government that's responsive, that focuses on service delivery, that deals with issues of corruption, that focuses on redress, and that creates an environment for jobs to be made, then we'd ask South Africans to just lend us their vote, just for 5 years. You're not married to us, just lend us the vote for 5 years, and let us prove to you that we can deliver.
Okay, so you're not looking for a long-term relationship. So thank you so much for watching the 6th edition of SA Decides Convenience Poll. The projections, of course, are reflecting quite an interesting story to tell. But that's the show for now. Thanks again.